Hello, it's another video from the Crazy Angry Photographer here. I was going to show you something really quick about one of the most important tools that you should have, whether you plan on doing studio shooting or not. If you plan on doing portrait photography, either indoors or outdoors, well, everybody obviously recommends like an octabox or a softbox, which is incredibly useful for soft light diffusion of the face. There's some really simple, cheap alternatives, such as buying, well, these are $39 light stands, some of the really cheap alternatives that are just as good. They're not as well constructed, but they're all rather inexpensive Chinese light stands. You buy a nice $10 light stand. Well, it's not incredibly durable. You want to spend 3 times as much for one of these units. I think these are both ProMaster light stands. A little better can be had. They're not more durable. But grab a nice umbrella. Obviously you don't need a 7-foot parabolic silver reflector back there like we have. It's a fiberglass rod Westcott. And over here is a wonderful little gold reflector. This one actually comes from Adorama. I don't actually know who they're outsourced through, but you can actually use these as a soft diffusion to mimic sunrise or sunset illumination on a person's face. I use this as a second reflector, like 10 watt seconds off to the side to imitate the rising or the setting sun. But for 20 bucks, as I basically enunciated in a prior video, you really should, if you're doing any portraiture work or even macro work, or you're shooting your dog, just having a $10 light stand. And it doesn't have to be a Westcott. I do recommend actually spending, no, they're not supporting me in any way, spending like an additional $10 to get a nice Westcott umbrella. But you know, the simplex little $10 and $15 Chinese umbrellas are perfectly fine. You know, unless you plan on using them outdoors on a windy day and you break them because you know, that blows over your umbrella and your light stand. It's no big deal. So think about spending 25 bucks. That's the best money that you can spend. You've already got the great cameras. You've already got the wonderful lenses, and I appreciate you all for sending me so much positive feedback on the lens recommendations I've been giving. But to one-up your photography to the level of, wow, you know, I would have actually paid for that and all it cost me was 25 bucks. Just grab a cheap $15 light stand and a nice Westcott or even a cheap Chinese umbrella. Now, some options to consider, like here we have a gold reflector. Obviously I just mentioned what that's used for. You don't need something dramatic. Of course, that's $100 parabolic silver reflector back there that would be used for like group photos or larger outdoor wide angle shots where you want to do illumination. Is actually perfect for like late evening. I'll actually crank up the wattage and use a 7-inch parabolic umbrella back there. But like a soft silver 41-inch umbrella like this actually brings out some of the nice specular highlights in a person's face. The most useful umbrella, well, they are slightly more expensive. It serves a dual purpose for an additional $10. That would be this Westcott, which has removable black backing. And what you can do, let me show you here really quick, you're able to remove the black backing and use just this as either a shoot-through on your strobe or as a white reflector. But you get a totally different effect. If you want to bring up some of the pictures online, that's fine. You're able to use this type of umbrella 3 different ways. As a white reflector with a black background, or as a white diffuse reflector only, or as a shoot-through. Take off the black backing and actually shoot through it. So for an additional $10, you are getting basically 3 different types of umbrellas all in one, and this is the best purchase for your money and keeping things on the cheap. And you'd be so happy with the results. I mean, ultimately, professional photography is about 2 things. Composition, which obviously is not gear, it's inside here. And secondly, that can either be innate or not, because it obviously can be learned. But importantly, light manipulation. And when you talk about light manipulation, you know, without spending an enormous amount, you know, like, of course that's not very expensive, but for most people it is, like a $500 studio strobe. But you don't need that. If you've already got the speed lights, all you need is a a $10 light stand like this and a nice $15 umbrella. Another useful one would be like this one. I think this is a 45-inch white satin. This is basically the version of the same thing I just showed you, except it does not have a removable black backing. So you can either use this as a shoot through or as a soft silver diffuser. Now, this is available in white satin or in soft silver. The silver, the more you progress, like a soft silver up to a silver, like the large 7-foot parabolic back there is a silver. The more specular highlights you actually get, especially in portraiture, it gives a totally different effect. You can bring up some of the examples of that. But ultimately, you're talking about spending $25, and a lot of people will spend obviously a whole lot more for that in a lens to get the effects that they want. As, for example, a nice portrait lens, like an 85mm or 135mm portrait lens for their Nikon camera. So logically and simply so, spending an additional $25 to give you that extra 5 or 10% that'll actually make your portraits, either of your animal, your cat, your wife, or if you're starting to do wedding photography or portrait photography, indoors or outdoors, that extra 25 bucks, it's like, oh my god, you're talking about spending more money on gear. Yes, but realistically, considering the grand scheme of what you've already spent on your Nikon camera, and the lenses, and probably the bag, and your flash, spending an additional $25, not that I'm asking you to spend money, but simply stating that logically that you've gone 95% of the way in what you've spent. Going an additional $25 is certainly no stretch when it is going to vastly improve the results that you want. So ask you to step out of the box a little bit, but compared to what you've spent, an additional 25-30 bucks. Like I said, I do recommend spending like $25 on a dual-purpose umbrella like this with a black backing. Like I said, you can get it one of several different varieties, either a soft silver or a white satin. So you're able to use it as a reflector, as a shoot-through, or with the black backing for that special effect. Okay? And whether you're a professional photographer, an amateur, or a newbie, you're going to have to experiment with these, but we're not talking about a steep learning curve here. You're going to shoot, your wife, or your model, or your cat. Use anything in as an example, and you're going to learn the distance that you're going to actually need to separate out your speed light from the reflector of the umbrella, or how far you actually need to space it to adjust your f-stop. You're very quickly, within an hour, going to learn exactly where not only place your umbrella in relation to, and there's tons and tons of books out there about that, and we'll get into that in later videos. The premise of this video is simply to state that spending 25-40 bucks on this is money very, very well spent. So if you like this video, you can drop me a buck or two, or tell me to jump off a cliff, and thanks for watching, and I hope I could help, and I appreciate all the positive feedback out there. And I was recently helping a girl answer some questions. She makes a lot of makeup tutorial videos, and I appreciated that I was able to recognize the problem that she had. She's using a kit lens and doing makeup tutorial videos. She needed definitely something, a nice prime macro lens. She's shooting very close up on her face, and it actually warms my day that I know that I can help somebody, because you save them money and save them time, and we both know that time is money. So I appreciate that I could help anybody out there to whatever little extent that I can, and I appreciate everybody for watching. Okay? Catch you later. Bye.